The French were the first to use poisonous gas. In the first month of war, they fired tear gas grenades against the Germans. Although afterwards, the Germans were the first ones to seriously study chemical weapons and the first to use chemical gas on a large scale.
In October 1914, the Germans fired shells at the French that contained a chemical which would make you sneeze continuously. About 3 months later, the Germans also introduced tear gas for the first time on the Eastern Front. They launched them against the Russians during the Battle of ww1.m4v in 1915, but failed because the liquid did not vaporize in the freezing temperatures. The Germans decided to improve their invention and launched another tear gas attack, but this time on the French, another couple of months later.
The real first time that poisonous gas was used was the 22nd of April in 1915, during the Second Battle of Ypres. The morning, the Germans poured a heavy bombardment of chlorine gas over the part of the battlefield where the Canadians, British, and French were staying. No one actually realized until some French and Algerian troops noticed a strange yellow-greenish cloud around their line. The French thought this was a cover for a German approach, so they prepared an attack. Seeing the strange smoke, some German prisoners of war warned the French that this was no ordinary gas, but no one listened to them and continued to wait for the attack. But in fact, the prisoners were right. So when the gas reached the troops, respiratory organs were destroyed within seconds of inhaling the gas, and choking attacks foreshadowed death.
The British were the first to respond to this attack. They opened the British Special Gas Companies. The men working in the factories were prohibited to say the word gas and had to say accessories instead. Anyone who broke this rule would be punished.
At the Battle of Loos, the British made 400 chlorine gas emplacements. It all began at 5:20 a.m., where a mixture of smoke and chlorine were released for 40 minutes before an infantry attack. The problem with this was that they hadn't taken into account the wind factor, so the wind blew the gas back towards them instead of the enemy. At the end of the day, there were more British casualties than German.
There were mainly 4 types of new gases used during World War I: tear gas, chlorine gas, phosgene gas, and mustard gas. Phosgene, a colorless gas and had smelled like moldy hay, was a much stronger type of gas, which made you violently cough and choke. It was effective because even by inhaling a little, you started coughing and would then inhale more. Just a little would also cause your death after 48 hours. It was invented by the French to retaliate against the Germans' chlorine gas attack. Overall, it killed 85% of the 100,000 deaths caused by chemical weapons.
The tear gas was first introduced by the French in 1914 against the Germans by using hand grenades. It is an irritant, so it is not a deadly type of gas. When inhaled, it caused temporary blindness and serious irritation to the nose and throat of the victims.
Next, the chlorine gas. At the time, Germany had the Bayer company come up with a gas that would be the most toxic. It was in fact a byproduct of their dye manufacturing. It looked like a greenish-gray cloud of smoke, so it was very visible. It was made to mix with any type of moisture, so it would attack lungs and eyes as well as make your nose and throat irritant. It would also kill people if they went untreated. Chlorine was first put in artillery shells in 1915 and was used against Russians, injuring over 9,000 and killing 1,000.
Finally, the mustard gas. It was introduced by Germany in 1917 and was the most effective and publicized gas of the entire world. It caused severe edema of the lungs, and death from asphyxiation could come within hours. This was very painful since it caused huge yellow blisters internally and externally, and incapacitated a person just by touching their skin. The upside for the people throwing the gas was that the gas mask didn't work against it. Unlike many others, the wind could not disperse the gas because it was heavy and sunk into holes and trenches and could stay there for weeks or even years. The bad thing about this gas was that it made it difficult for Germans to attack their enemy with mustard gas and then advance into their positions.